As you and your teammates make changes to files that reside within a Files tab of a team channel, it's auto-saving those changes and creating what are known as versions of that file. Now we're going to take a look at how you can get to that version history and even manage that version history. And we're starting here in the Community Volunteers team general channel in the Files tab. If you're familiar with OneDrive for Business, you may have already worked with version history there. While the process is the same, it's a little different on how you get to that version history. Let's start by right-clicking over the file and taking a look at the More Actions menu. You'll notice that we do not have version history available here. And in OneDrive for Business, if you were to right-click over a file, you would find version history in that menu. That's because the OneDrive for Business files are what are known as the Me files. They're my files until I choose to share them with another person or a group of individuals. In a Teams file library, this library is actually hosted in the associated SharePoint site document library. And for that reason, all of the files automatically within a team channel are available to everyone that is part of that team. So you and all of your teammates have the shared responsibility of managing those files, and you automatically have access to both read and edit those files. In OneDrive, you'd have to share that out with a person or a group of individuals, and then choose if you want them to be able to read or edit that file. So for that reason, we're going to take a look at the process, how it differs, where you'll find this version history. Let's click outside of this menu. At the top of this menu, we have some choices on a ribbon. The Open in SharePoint is somewhat cut off, so let's go ahead and minimize the menus on the left side of the Teams app so we can see this ribbon in full view. To do this, select the double-headed arrow in the upper right corner to expand the tab. Now we can see the Files tab in full view. From this menu, we'll select Open in SharePoint, and because we're in the online version of Teams, the browser tab next to it is opening, and here we see it's called Community Volunteers. You can see in the upper left corner that we are in SharePoint, and that the name of the SharePoint site is the same name as the team. It takes us directly to the document library for this SharePoint site. On the navigation, we see Documents Selected. Over here to the right, there's the Volunteer Events PowerPoint that we were just looking at. Now, to get to the version history, there's a few ways you can accomplish this. You can check the circle next to it, and from the contextual ribbon that displays the actions that can be performed, you can go to the three ellipses and select version history. As I mentioned, you can right-click on the file, and now we find version history in this expanded menu. You can also select the three ellipses that appear when you hover over the list item. By selecting this, we'll then select version history, and the version history is going to appear in a pop-up. On the left, take a closer look at the number column. Starting at the bottom is what's known as a major version. Version 1.0 is when the file was created in this library. As we move up, we're seeing that this is incrementing. 1, 2, 3, but 4 is missing. It goes to 5 and then to 6. Next to this column is a date and time, which indicates when the modifications were made. So for version 1, the date and time on when this was created in the library, or if this file was moved to the library from somewhere else that it existed. As we move up, we're able to see when each of these versions was created. To the right of this, we have names. This is the person that made the modification during that version, or if multiple people made modifications during that version, the last person to make the modification as it saved that group of changes. To the right of that is the size of the file, and to the right of that is a comments column. We don't have any comments currently, but this is all the metadata that is happening behind the scenes as it saves each of these versions. Now, as you hover over that date and time, you will see a drop-down arrow that gives you the choices on how you can manage this version. If you'd like to view that version, restore back and make this the working copy that everyone is working in, or delete a version. And delete is what we're seeing that has happened here. So if a version is deleted, it takes that number out, but it keeps the other version sequencing the same so that you can see any gaps in there where there might be some things that have been deleted. If we were to restore version 5, that would make it the latest working copy. So version 5 would be at the top of the list. Now let's go ahead and try to restore this. It's going to say, are you sure you want to replace this current version? If you're sure, go ahead and click OK. And you may see this message popping up. We'll give it just a moment here. Oh, it didn't give us the message. You might also see a message that says there was a technical issue and someone has it locked for editing, and it will show you the email address of who has it locked. But it appears that Pierce Boyd has since exited that file, so he's no longer has it locked for editing. And now take a look at what's happened. We have a new version, version 7. So that working copy, version 5, is still there, but we said go ahead and make this the latest one, restore back to that, and it created a new version 7 with the date and the time of when that was modified, and also showing that Heather is the person that restored and created that version 7. Let's go ahead and select the X in the upper right corner to exit this version history. And take a closer look at this library if you're not familiar with how it's creating folders for each of the channels. So in this Community Volunteers SharePoint site, we have the main documents level, and then we have a folder here called General, and that is where this volunteer events file resides. This is also known as a breadcrumb trail to find your way back to the main level of the library. Let's go ahead and select Documents. Now we're in the main level where we can see the folder called General. As you create new channels within your team, it's also creating a new folder with the same name in this SharePoint site document library. So your team is connected to this SharePoint site and to the document library, and this is really where all of those channel folders reside, as well as any of the files that you place in that Files tab of that channel. And that is how you can manage the version history of files in your team channels.